What's on your mind, Digby Scott?
Well, you know how we've been talking a lot over the last couple of weeks about how people have been getting excited about doing something new or having a new way of working or whatever.
New ways of working?
Well, new ways of working. Well, there's still a lot of opportunity, right? But when I was walking yesterday, I found myself thinking, you know, the only people and organisations or institutions that are going to level up and change how they do this are the ones who know how to learn. Not just the ones who have a vision or a dream or an aspiration, because that's not enough. And I got thinking about James Clear's stuff, Atomic Habits. You know, you and I have been fortunate enough to meet him and talk with him.
Hang out with him.
Yeah, hang out with him. And to name drop.
Name drop. Casual name drop right there. Remember when we were talking to James Clear about this? You might know him, best-selling author.
Yeah,
Jimmy.
And so I was thinking about what he says this really cool thing, that you don't rise to the level of goals, you fall to the level of your systems.
I use that quote all the time. I love that.
Yeah, and it's a great idea, right? Because, and I've personally been doing a lot of thinking about what do I want the last few weeks, and got a pretty clear picture of how I want to be working and stuff. And I thought, what's it going to take to make that happen? It's actually not just having a compelling goal or a vision. It's actually setting up systems that are going to enable me to do that. And I was reading this other really cool book called Mastering Leadership, which is one of my sort of go-to texts in this space. And they talk about, you know, structural forces will overcome willpower every time. And I really like that. It's a bit like the metaphor of surfing, where a good surfer doesn't just rush out into the ocean. They sit there and they go, okay, what are the currents doing? What are the waves doing? This thing called the ocean is so much more powerful than me. How can I work with it rather than against it?
Oh, yeah, because willpower runs out, right? It's just like enthusiasm. Like, if you don't want to eat junk food, just don't have junk food in your house is a pretty good first step, right?
Yeah, that's right. So set up systems. So it got me thinking, personally, what does that take? And I reckon the Atomic Habits stuff is really good for that, right? It's like habit stacking, you know, build a new habit onto an existing habit, stuff like that. But then at an institutional organisational level, it requires permission to do stuff. It requires role modelling. It requires so much work to set up different structural forces. It's like, well, how many organisations are really good at doing that? And I don't think it's...
Yeah, and not just figuring out the new thing and setting up a system for the new thing. But if you do anything that matters, like if you're a leader or you've got responsibilities or you've got a family or a team, you can't one day decide things are different and just make it that. There's a transition point, and stabilising the old part and shifting toward the new part at the same time is part of that journey. Yeah. And that's hard work.
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. And managing expectations around that, because as I think it was Rosabeth Moth-Kanter says, you know, any transformation is really messy in the middle. It looks like a failure in the middle, right? Yeah. And do you have the courage to carry on, regardless if it's going to... It wouldn't be just easy to go back to how we used to have it, because we knew that kind of worked. Maybe it wasn't perfect. And I reckon that's the courage of leadership right now. So I've been mulling on that stuff, right? And I don't have answers. I'm just sitting here going, oof, yeah, this is not just about having a compelling picture of what you want.
Yeah, I'm thinking about that too.
Yeah, it's like it's the okay, what are the systems I can change? So I'm seriously looking at that, and there's not just stuff that I can do, like having daily timetables and changing my arrangement of my day. I think there's a whole lot of mental models I've got to challenge as well about like, what does it mean to be successful, and what does it mean to work? And so I'm kind of right in that space right now, going, you know what? I think I'd really like just to work half days. I'd really like just to work in the mornings, and so I can have the afternoon for doing whatever the hell I want. And I'm thinking so I can structure my day, sure, but then I've also got to go, but what if people want me in the afternoon? What do I say? And there's all this sort of stuff that goes on. And then I've noticed, I've tried to do this in the past, and I've sort of defaulted back to, oh, no, okay, well, I will, and I'll let it seep in, and then So how do I do that? That's what I'm wondering about right now.
Well, that's your environment stuff, so you've got to make it really hard or impossible to actually book you in the afternoon. The first step for that is change your environment so that it's actually more difficult to work in the afternoon than it is not.
You know, one thing I think is also about it's deciding what's just as important that would replace that. So, you know, you and I are both writing books and so it's like prioritising that stuff, exercise, whatever it might be, and having a commitment mechanisms for that. So I'm really curious about that, both for individuals but also for whole cultures, whole systems. How do we change that? And yeah, it's an interesting challenge, eh?
So I guess if we were really thinking about this, it would be, what are the ways that you think that need to change to be able to support the way that you work if you do want something different? And how can you structure your life and your environment to make it easier to do the new thing instead of defaulting back to the old thing?
Wise words, Alicia Mackay.
Thank you. Shall I do a countdown for the stop?
That's good.
3, 2, 1, stop.